Hey there, young bestie. Jeff from Hobbii here, and you are listening to Skein and Tell, the podcast that unravels it all. Today's episode, well, get ready to feel all the stitches. We're talking motherhood chaos, creative burnout, and what it means to keep creating when your world turns upside down in the most beautiful and exhausting way. We have a really special guest on today's episode, the queen of color, fashion brand owner turned slow fashion preacher, and new mama who somehow still manages to sprinkle joy all over the internet, even if she hasn't brushed her hair in a while. You know, honestly, same. But yeah, today we're going to listen to a lovely conversation with the one and only Katie Jones. Now, bear with me because my mic died a few minutes before we started recording. Yay! That's why we got this new mic now. So my voice is a little bit muffled, but you will still be able to understand and hear me, of course. It's just not as crisp as this. Nonetheless, I hope that you'll have fun listening in because this episode is so dear to my heart because its topics resonate very, very much with me at the moment, as it explores the real and the raw and the radiant intersection of creativity, motherhood, and identity. So I've been following Katie for a very long time now, and I'm a huge fan of her brand, her universe. I also happen to love who she is as a human, and I'm really hoping that today we'll learn a bit about how creativity doesn't stop when life gets messy. If anything, that's when it gets real. So grab your project bag, give yourself permission to leave those ends unwoven for a bit, and let's dig into what really means to be a maker when you're remaking yourself as well. Hi, Katie. Good to have you on today's episode.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling today?
I'm a little bit frazzled, as always, but I'm good, lovely. How about you?
I'm very, very fine. We had the chance to talk a little bit before we actually started recording. So it was nice to do a little catching up. But I am also exhausted. I'm exhausted. Albert woke up exactly 14 times. I counted yesterday night. I think his molars are growing. So, yeah. And we also kept postponing this.
Yes.
So it's just super nice that we actually could synchronize for once.
The kids, well, I'd say their sleep schedule matched up, but no, just managing to run on empty a little bit better today.
So tell us a little bit about you. I mean, paint us a little bit of a picture of what life looks like for you right now, you know, between baby snuggles and chaos, yarn chaos.
So for me, my little one is about to turn 1. So they are dominating everything at the moment in life, rightly so. But my last 2 months has been a little bit different because actually I worked a lot of the sort of early bit, which most people have off on maternity. I actually worked quite a lot. And now I'm having what I would say is like delayed maternity. And so I'm having a little bit more time off now, but I'm still working, but I just got a little bit more breathing room. And so it's lots of time at the park in the day. I've got an allotment, which I take the little one to. So lots of digging, lots of dirty fingernails. So not very good for trying to film tutorials. And then a little bit of a night crochet. I kind of crochet when they sleep. So most of my work gets done in the late hours these days. And I'm also starting teaching a little bit again. But yeah, it's mainly lots of very active kid hangout time at the moment.
So kind of like a little owl you are right now.
Yes, a little owl. Yeah, it makes trying to get like progress photos or like behind the scenes content quite difficult.
Yep.
It's all by like very orange light late in the wee hours.
So what's something you actually thought would be really, really hard, maybe about becoming a mom that turned out to be easy, and maybe the other way around, and you know, yeah, something like that. It's something you didn't expect to struggle at all, but you did.
So I think for me, obviously everyone's experience into being a mum is very different. And actually I found the being the mum part, since having my kid, the kind of smoother part of the journey. And for me, it was like getting to this point that was hard. So just for a little bit of, I suppose, like heavy or intro into my background and a little bit of a trigger warning about infertility and pregnancy loss. It took me a long time to have my little one. It was sort of 5 years of bumpy trying to get there. And that was really, really tough. And I don't think I'd ever thought that that process would have consumed me as much as it did. It kind of took over my whole life in a way I don't think I could have ever imagined. At the time, I didn't really know anybody else close that had also gone through that. And it felt very, very isolating. And I don't think I would have predicted just like how, I don't know, like how mentally and physically that really affected me. It made me feel like kind of like very sort of jealous and bitter about wanting to be a mum. And I'm someone who's usually like, you know, I'm very brightly coloured, usually quite jolly as a person. And so like the kind of person I became, I think, in those sort of 5-year run up to being a mum was someone very detached from and removed from the person that I think I am. And I think that is something I never expected. Like also before I went into the journey of trying to have a kid, I wasn't someone who like always thought like I definitely want to be a mum. And so I think I was really, really shocked when that whole process really just like infiltrated every aspect of my life and like really, really took over and was just very all consuming and not nice. And then I think actually like sort of becoming a mum and getting out the other side, I think I was very hesitant even when I was pregnant to sort of admit that I was pregnant. I was quite nervous about it until they actually came out the other side. And so for me, actually being a mum, or like the bit that I'm sort of enjoying, is trying to sort of shed that version of myself that sort of took over for a long time. And it's been really joyful, and I feel like a lot lighter and more free. And it's so nice just to have like giggles with the little one. And I think so it's sort of learning how to be myself a little bit again, I think. And so that first bit was harder than I ever thought. And I think maybe it's made me a little bit, not more relaxed since I've had a baby, but in terms of, I think a lot of people, maybe when they have a kid, sometimes not that they feel their life gets smaller, but it's something kind of takes control. But actually, because of my sort of journey, my little one was IVF. And we had like lots of tests and stuff before, like how to get to having a baby. My life was really constricted and restricted. And I was quite isolated. And so actually the other side of having a baby, I felt like I've become super, super social. And it's like opened up a lot, which I think sometimes is the opposite to when some people have kids. But like I say, it's really different for everyone. So that was the bit that I felt harder. I think the fashion industry trained me nicely for lack of sleep. So actually like the sleep side of it. And I think also I'm someone that didn't have routine. So I've worked freelance basically all of my adult life. I will sort of work odd projects and I work for other things. So my days are really, really different. When I get a crazy project, sometimes it's like all-nighters and really long hours. And then I have periods where it's quiet. And so that kind of infrequency, I think, of just like my day being a normal pattern actually smoothed me in, I think, to that early bit. Because I think if you're someone who's maybe got like quite a lot of routine and then that's thrown in the air, I imagine that is really different and difficult. Whereas actually I was used to no routine. So that was a kind of odd, like pre-training fashion industry, just stupid hours and lack of sleep. And actually, I think this has been the best. Like the most I've used my fashion training has been for being able to cope with lack of sleep and funny hours. And then another thing that I think I find sort of not hard, but I didn't assume, is actually my little one. I was very lucky. They were quite a good sleeper when they were smaller. And so actually the first bit, I would say up to about 6 months was quite smooth sailing. And now they're just like crazy active. And I think this bit I'm finding a little bit harder. So they're just about to turn 1. And I think from about 9 months, because I made like quite a big friendship group where I lived of other people that had babies. And I felt that was amazing. And now everyone is going back to sort of normal, quote unquote, work. And so it's this kind of shift, I think, where actually the kid so enjoyable because they're really starting to become like a person and you get a lot more feedback. But core, you have to run around. They are active. Like it is a lot of work and there's more routine now. And so I think actually from about 6 months onwards, I felt that that's when I felt like motherhood kicking in, because obviously there's loads in the run up to that, but suddenly like routine, like feeding them solid, routine, dinners, that kicked in. And so I think my day-to-day life changed a lot more. And then more people are sort of going off and being like normal. But then also it's kind of interesting because you're expected, I think after, 9 months or a year, you kind of get released back into the work world. And I think people think that you're just going to work like normal. And then you're suddenly realizing like normal does not exist anymore, like pre-normal, and like trying to work out like how to do everything you did before, but now with a little person that has lots of stuff to go along with them. So I think it's the juggle. And I think I originally thought they'd get older and it would get easier. And I think it's the other way around. And it's not harder, it's just harder to work out, like, I don't know, how to muster enough energy and how to get enough done. So I think that's my take.
Yeah, and I mean, I couldn't agree more. Small children, small problems. Big children, big problems. And I feel it's like that. But, just to touch back on what you said about the really, really 5-year bumpy journey you've had, and eventually managing with IVF treatment. I was very, very close to starting that journey because I've been told by my doctors that I wasn't able to have children because of some issues, right? So when I got pregnant, and it was by complete accident, I don't know how it happened, and it happened way earlier than we expected. I mean, I know they say that you can never prepare for children. You're never really, really prepared. But I was really underprepared. I was arming myself up to having probably
like a much longer journey. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then it happened. And so I got kind of hit in the face with the good news, but also at the same time with that unpreparedness and everything just changing so fast. And like you said, the beginning, it was chaotic because it was something new and you had to adapt. And then you thought it was difficult then. But now that I came out of that, I'm like, okay, it was not that difficult the first 6 months, 7 months, when they only ate milk and so forth. But as my baby's growing, I am juggling a lot between who I am as a mom, like Mom Jaya, and who I am as a person, a woman, a creative. So I really feel like I'm still finding the balance between, because you cannot, there's no normal again. Normal doesn't exist.
And every time you get like comfy with a routine, or you think, oh, I've mastered this, then it blooming changes up on you. Like as quick as you get like into a pattern, it just like they change and like the demands change or life changes. And then I think it's like now just forever adapting and like just, trying to work out how to split your time, I think.
I mean, you've built your super creative business. You've been freelance all of your adult life. What do you think first shifted when you became a mom, not just logistically, but also emotionally or creatively? Because normal is not normal anymore and you have to constantly adapt. So what changed or what shifted in you?
So I think I'm actually sort of shifting back into one person and working out how to that, because I think for a very long time, obviously, like I said, like my sort of, I'm a person, but like my brand, quote unquote, is very bright and colorful, and I'm happy. And then obviously, because I had this longer sort of fertility journey, which really affected me and my mental health and just how I was, I became very, very different from my usual self. And also, but that also something that I didn't want to like load into my work. I wanted to still have my work as an escape, but then it became like quite like you're quite separated. It was also something that I wasn't very comfortable with all the time, like opening up. It felt very raw, and a sort of, at the time, a kind of journey which I had no idea, you know, what would the outcome be, how long it would be. So I kept it quite separate, which then meant it felt sometimes I was sort of not like putting on a uniform, but sometimes it just made me feel very removed from then the sort of work persona person I was. Which in the beginning, because my brand, I always find funny calling it a brand because it's just me, was just me, it felt all the same. And then it felt quite weird to be pulled apart and be very different. And so now I'm sort of working out, actually, like I'm coming back. I'm coming back into being one entity, like one person. And then so I'm learning how to be myself again, like I was before. But also now I'm different because my time is shifted. And how I have to focus is different. And I feel like creative wise, I feel quite free because I don't have to sort of hide that self. I'm sort of actually just more joyful in myself, so it's easier to be joyful in my work. But I do find like I'm very much an all or nothing person. Like how I work is very much like in massive big bursts where it kind of takes over, and I do silly hours, but that's how I work, and then I have downtime. And obviously now that does not work. Like I can't like lock myself in a room for a week, like sat on the sofa crocheting, watching TV for like 18-hour days, making stuff up. Like that's not an option. And so I'm trying to work out how to work in a new way that goes quite against how I usually work, which is interesting. And sort of working out how long it takes to turn around a project, because like we were saying, like the little ones, they change rapidly. So I might be able to plan a week in advance how I might be able to work. But then if they start teething and then I start having 1 hour sleep a night, then how I'm going to work is going to be really different. And so I've been doing more projects for myself. And it's also like working out, if you're working for a client, like which people you can work for. That also understand that need for flexibility at the moment, because I can promise something with all like true intention that I'll be able to do it, but then actually like they might get ill or something might happen, and actually then you just have to be a little bit more flexy. So I'm working out who's the nice people to work for and who like what kind of gels, if I'm not just working for myself. And I do, you know, I don't want to be biased, but I do want to do a big shout out for Hobbii, who I've worked with quite a lot during my like fertility process and then pregnancy, where I was quite poorly, and then Bab, and they have been so good to me. So I think it's finding like the right, if I'm working for a client, it's finding like the right people to work with that understand, because there's just no time to be like cripplingly stressed. Like there's not time for me to be like that about work. So it's, yeah, working out how to work in this space with a little one and the right people that I can work with.
Yeah, and I remember when I returned from maternity, and you know, I was shot in back at Hobbii straight into what we call peak season. So it's like when the weather gets a little cold, you know, when people kind of retrieve back to their caves with their little knitting needles and crochet hooks in hand. that's when it's the busiest for us. When people are getting cozy, we get busy. So I was just shot back in there in October, and I remember I was like ready. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take over the world. And very, very soon I realized that nope, I can't take over the world. I need to be home at a certain time. I can't work overtime, which I did, before a lot because I love my job so much. I love
That's the thing,
being
right?
at
You
Hobbii.
just do a lot because you love it, and it's like,
Yeah.
fine, it's what pays the bills, but you love it
Yeah.
and you give it. And it's trying to find that balance, because also I feel like I still really need that. Like, that makes me a better mum because it makes me happier. But then it's trying to find that balance, like how to integrate those two people, like the mum person and the, I'm not gonna say workaholic, but like the person that really throws themselves in to their work.
I also don't want to be biased, but also shout out to Hobbii and shout out to my manager who was really, really sweet. And he just, he went full on my side. He said, just do whatever works for you, make things work for you, and we will find a way to make things work here as well. So
Which
I feel like
just so nice, which is just nice because I just used to, I mean, I've worked in the craft sphere, but I've also worked in the fashion industry, and there's just like, I found like for a few people I've worked for in the fashion industry, there's just no give in there. Just hasn't been give. There's like no give for any kind of disruption. And so it feels, I think, when you find a workplace which like allow you to be a human, I think, like a human where things happen, it's like a big hug. It's like so supporting. And I think, finding that can sometimes be really rare. If you've when I've been in like quite a fast pace where there's just no give, there's no buffer. So there's no buffer for anything kind of, when I've been working for like fashion shows or deadlines or stuff like that, there's just, everything is already late. Like everything was wanted yesterday. So there's no buffer for anything else. Which it doesn't really, it's not conducive to if you've got, more than yourself to deal with.
We do have a lot of mothers at Hobbii, and I think that Hobbii is really good at prioritizing, making sure that, the mom get heard and are seen. And I feel like that is, like you said, a very, it's a privilege that not a lot of people have. So yeah, I feel like I'm quite lucky, and I guess we both feel quite lucky.
Yeah.
So yeah. So how do you hold space for your creative self now? Because now, like you said, you can't lock yourself in a room for 18 hours a day. So how do you hold space for your creative self?
I think for me, I've always used, other than just work, I always think like my creativity is probably like my love language, like how I show care. I like to dedicate time to something, making something that would kind of bring joy. And so I think at the moment, rather than work so much, I'm sort of indulging my creativity in kind of creating, I suppose, beautiful spaces or things. So I've been doing all sort of, I'm starting now, we've got a bit more time to sort of embark on doing a bit more like decorating and doing the house. And my house is sort of very, I'm not going to say themed, it's very highly decorated. I'm definitely a maximalist, a more is more kind of person. And I think like for me, like putting that time and effort, and so at the moment we'd planned to do the nursery before the little one popped, obviously did not happen. And so we're trying to do it before their first birthday. But like pouring energy into that and sort of making something fun and creative. And it's also really nice because it's not work. So I think that's the other thing that kind of happens. If you make what was your hobby your job, you can still get love in it, but it's different. Or you try to sometimes like monetize, or like it becomes work related. And so I kind of sometimes love doing the house or things like my allotment, like growing flowers, because there's no way I can monetize it. Like there's no way that this can see it can, you can take a few snaps, a bit of content, but it doesn't become work. So I feel I can really indulge in it and take, like, I don't feel rushed. I can take a lot of time. And it has a certain freedom. I don't have to do a bedroom and then love it and then work out the maths and the pattern behind it, which as a maker of crochet, it's like half the job, but I love the making bit. And then I'm like, oh, I've got to write a pattern. And so, yeah, that's, I suppose, where I have a little bit of space at the moment. And where I sort of pour. But yeah, anything I can try and make look prettier than it was before, be it myself with clothing or a room or a bit of furniture or my garden, that's kind of, I think, where I pour. I just want everything to be like as colourful and decorated as possible. No blank space anywhere, please.
But I mean, I can totally vibe with that because the same happened with us. I feel like now one of my main focuses is making sure that I'm adjusting everything in the house so that it's the most livable and joyful place to be, because we do live in Denmark and there's many, many months of cold weather where we can't just go out. So we do spend so much time indoors. So I just want it to be like this joyful place where, there's, like I said, colors and space to run around. And so I've been focusing a lot on that as well here. And I feel like it's a great outlet to let some of that creative energy out.
Definitely.
So yeah,
I always joked that I would charge people to bring their kids over to my house and have coffee, because it felt like, when you go to like a sensory place, that's just my kitchen. Here we go. But yes, I'm finding, because I'm a maximalist and I've got so much stuff, or like the walls have got so much art on, and then I'm realizing like, oh, this is too low. This is too low. This is too much stuff. And so it's like trying to keep everything colorful, but like trying to work out how to not have anything that is a hazard.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about the designer aspect of it, because do you feel that motherhood has changed your sense of identity as a designer, or it's made you even more rooted in it?
So I don't think it's maybe changed my identity, but I think it's definitely changed the reason that I'm doing things. And I think I have already like a relatively complicated relationship with this idea of motherhood as an identity, because I think all the time that we were trying to have a kid, I felt like it was like a club that I couldn't be in. And so I got quite jealous of this sort of motherhood as an identity. And so, I felt kind of excluded from it, which made me, kind of feel sad. But now I'm on the other side and I realize completely why it becomes an identity, because it changes your whole life. Like it changes everything. And so now I'm trying to find my own sort of way with it. But I feel, like my sort of mental transition. Because for a long time I felt quite, even though I had become a mother, I feel like mentally all of the stuff from before, I had to catch up with my old self, if that makes sense. Like it took a while to sort of transition. But I think it's definitely, it's sort of because it's changed what I want to make or why I'm making, or so I think it has sort of seeped in with that. So I think it's sort of changed my reasons for doing things rather than become an identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But I feel with that, because I'm also, now I'm not buying patterns for myself. Now I'm just like looking, okay, what can I make for Albert? Because, then it's also nicer because it's smaller projects. And
that's the thing. It's like you have less time. Like I tried to start doing myself something and it's got like 3/4 of a sleeve for like the last 6 months. And I'm like, okay, like there's not time. And it's kind of, it's fun to dress them up. Like it's fun.
Exactly.
It's quicker. It's fun.
And do you find, of course you find yourself doing different projects now. You just mentioned that, but do you reach more for projects that allow you to be more in charge of the time frames because I don't know, maybe they're smaller, or what kind of projects are you reaching out for now to create?
Yeah, I'm 100%.
I've seen a little snippet of the upcoming mini collection you're doing for us, for Hobbii. And let me tell you, I saw the onesie. I saw it. Jackie sent it to me yesterday.
It's very fun. So I always joke that I think I have the design aesthetic, or like I, as a person, dress as a, how old am I? 37? I always forget. So 36, 36, 37. I can't remember. Anyway, late 30s-year-old woman dressed like an overgrown toddler. That is my vibe. I like a lot of color. I like a lot of print. I basically wear like colored dungarees and pigtails most of the time. I look like Pippi Longstocking. Like, I like dressing like a toddler. I don't know why everyone suddenly gets serious and they can't wear that. And so I feel like, actually, oh look, now I get to make stuff. I don't feel like I have to rein anything in. And I mean, in my work with patterns, I don't feel like that's so much, because actually people can pick their colors of things, right? So there's a freedom. But it definitely means like any kind of like thing I think about, I don't feel like I have to rein it in, because I'm, you know, especially if I'm design, and that's why I'm kind of really enjoying making kids stuff, because also more people, if they wouldn't dress like me, like an overgrown toddler as an adult themselves, they're actually like still really happy to like dress their kids in like fun stuff. And so I'm really enjoying that. I'm definitely doing way more baby themed items than I ever did. Surprise, surprise. Because also I've got like a little model that can try stuff on, so I can know if it can fit. It's also smaller. And so when you're trying to fit time frame stuff in, it just makes more sense. And even actually, like, you know, if you're designing, if I'm thinking about my peers or like how my brand has evolved and who I'm designing for, like a lot of those people will also have kids now. And the reality is, like we're saying, it's hard to make a big project for yourself. And especially how I sort of design usually, there's a, you know, it's not normally sort of one piece, one color. It's normally lots of changes. It, you know, they're not the quickest of pieces to make. And so I think, yeah, sort of picking smaller stuff because if it's who I'm designing for, but also it's fun. And it's also what I'm able to make, like able to sort of turn around, because before when I was designing, I would sort of make a piece and then I would usually do all the sizing. So if I was making a jumper, I would usually make about 8 samples myself of a jumper, which obviously then in a pattern turnaround is quite intense. Like that's not a quick process. But obviously making smaller items means even if I'm doing the different sizes, means that it doesn't take me like 6 months. Plus it's very cute. And yeah, and the samples can go on the little one. So I'm sort of definitely doing way more kid stuff. But I'm like trying to find my balance, I think, like with time frames especially, because I'm finding it so insanely hard to judge how long anything will take me. Because how I worked before is so different to now. So like I would do probably unhealthily long days when I worked. And so I'm just used to like, oh, if I say it takes me 2 days, I probably did like a 16-hour day those 2 days. It's not like an 8-hour day. So that's quite a lot of time. And then now it's like something that maybe took me 3 days before, maybe takes me 3 weeks because of when I can get the snippets to do it. So that is definitely a massive learning curve. And I've not worked it out. But that's also because the little one keeps changing. So in the first like 6 months, I worked quite a lot more. And my partner did most of the childcare because of what project. I had some projects that, surprise, surprise, I thought I'd be quicker at in later pregnancy. And then I realized, you're quite slow in later pregnancy. And so then once I'd popped, I still had to finish some pieces. And then I got a really amazing project to do, like some stuff for the Christmas windows at Selfridges here. And I felt like it was just like too fun an opportunity to miss. So I was quite busy, but the little one just kind of slept and ate, and my partner looked after them, and we shared it. It was much more 50-50. But because they were quite a good sleeper, it meant I quite a lot of time to work. And so now they're bigger. And like I said, there's like more routine. So it's like the days are very different now when you've kind of got 3 meals a day you're sort of doing with them. But it's finding my balance. And me and my partner both work in the creative field and are freelance. And so we kind of do like a 50-50 split, which means I do get, I do have the ability to, do a full day every now and then. Not an 18-hour day anymore, but, like a 6-hour day. But yeah, it's just getting that juggle, just working out like how do I work? And it's quite hard when you're doing projects because I like can't guess anymore. Like I can't kind of so some things just take as long as they take, and that's what I'm learning. I need to either be very upfront with who I'm working with, or if I'm working for myself, I used to be like, oh, I promised this pattern then, this pattern then, and then I'm realizing like that just doesn't work. Like I need to basically like do the thing and then show it rather than be like, oh, here's a sneak peek, and then be like, the pattern's coming, and then I'm like 3 months later, the pattern is definitely coming, and then it's like no, I just need to sort of be way more fluid, I think, with how and when things can kind of get released or drop. And the joy with working for myself in patterns is that I have the ability to do that to some extent. I obviously still need to make money, but to some extent I've got the ability to give myself a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, but even small things like meeting up with some friends and you're like, okay, let's meet up at 9, and then you don't meet up at 9 because then the baby just pooped as you were walking.
Someone's having a nap. Then this is happening. Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
But then how do you know when it's time to actually, take a little pause, even if your brain is just saying all the time, go, go, go?
I mean, I think I'm probably the worst person to ask this because I'm terrible at doing it. Like I'm not good at, I definitely burn myself out a lot. It's how I work. I work lots, burn myself out, crash, break, burn. And it's not healthy. But it's kind of always been how my like creative brain works. But I'm trying to work out how to do that without burning out, because now I don't have the luxury of burning out, like I need to be present and awake and helpful to look at to my partner and my baby. So it's sort of, I'm trying to work out before my body tells me. Like I'm trying to get my brain to tell me before my body's just like, yeah, no, I've had enough. And so I'm really trying to learn about my pace. And I think my thing is realizing, like we were saying about like how kids change and then everything has to change. Because I think, especially because I was able to work quite a lot early on, and I kind of was steamrolling through, and I don't really quite know how I did it looking back. But there were like some projects that I had to finish and we needed it, because I think it's also that thing, it's having, when it's also your job, and your job in the sense of that's what pays our mortgage. And that's what it's like. Of course, you've got to have some flex, but then also if you need to be earning, you need to also be earning. So I'm trying to work in a way that means I can sustain that. But I think it's definitely hard because I'm finding, like we were saying, like to gauge how long things take is hard. And then I'm also definitely someone who wants to like have my cake and eat it too. So I want to spend like as much time with my little one as I can, but at the same time I'm working full time. And so I think in the beginning, I basically just sacrificed sleep because I was like, they sleep okay. I can hang out with them loads in the day. I can work at night, but then that means I don't sleep. So that's silly. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm not like the best person. I'm trying to work out how to do it. I'm someone who's never had routine. Not really. And I think actually I'm someone that now needs routine. As much routine as you can have with a small baby, but in terms of changing my pace of how I work and when I work. And sometimes I'll have like little snippets. Like I remember people telling me like, oh, you have a baby and then you've got really limited time. And then, you know, you can be really creative in 2 hours and you can get way more done than you ever did. And occasionally I do that. Sometimes I just find myself in a scroll hole. So I'm like, maybe I'm not that good at using the time very effectively. But yes, it's a learning curve. And so, yeah, I'm trying to work out just how to just pace myself better, I think. And I think I'm getting better at it. I think I'm getting better.
So what parts of your work are keeping you sane right now? Because for me, it was coming back to Hobbii and starting on this podcast and having, the space to work on something that I haven't worked on before, like a new project, a fresh start, basically.
Like it's that hard juggle. I think it's like I'm someone that I need to like feed that creativity. Like I need to work, otherwise I don't feel like me, and then I'm not so happy. And then obviously to be a better mum, I I'm better when I'm happy. So it's like getting that juggle. And so I think I sort of, until recently, because I did that thing where I worked a lot and then I burnt out at about Easter, where I'd just been doing projects and it was kind of going fine, and then how the sort of routine changed and I didn't change with that. And so then I sort of burnt out. And so now I'm sort of looking at things differently, and sort of thinking about my work differently. And so actually I sort of stepped back a little bit from work to like refresh. I basically became like hyper focused with having an allotment. I spent like a month just digging and planting to refresh my brain. And now I'm sort of getting my feet back in the water. And actually, I think the project that you mentioned before that I'm doing, my little spooky project, has been really fun way to get back into work. It's because basically I never know if I'm allowed to talk about it. I did a very big project that I took on before I knew I took on a big project when I knew I was going to have IVF. And I took it on because I was a bit worried that it wouldn't work. And if I said no to all my work, then I would be in a bad place. And then it worked and I kept the big project. And that comes out later this year. And it was an amazing project and I'm glad I did it, but the juggle was too much. I wouldn't do it again. But it was I'm glad I did it, but yeah, it was where like sometimes you have to just admit that you're like, okay, I said yes to too much. And so that's why I had a bit of a break. But yeah, the project I'm doing at the moment for Hobbii is so fun. And I think it's just like lit that sort of like joy back into working, because it's just such a cute, fun project that's been like, such a joy that it's like really reignited, I think. Like just
I think that this episode is probably going to be coming out very soon to the release of that project. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about it really, really quickly.
Okay. So it's a little spooky fun. It's a mini baby kid collection. Little Halloween, little spooky fun, baby boo. And so I've done like a set of bonnets that are really cute and fun. I love a baby bonnet. They're just adorable. And then I've got a romper that is just, I think that's my favorite bit. and a blanket. And it's just fun. I think that's what I like. I love it because it's just pure, like, silly fun. And sometimes I think, you know, you just need that. Like, you just need that little bit of like dopamine hit of like pure joy. And it's been also like super fun to work on. So yeah, that's been like a really nice sort of refresh.
Like I said, I saw the onesie, the romper. It is so cute. It is so cute. I was kind of wishing that Albert was still small enough to kind of fit him. You know what I mean? Because Albert is a big guy. So I think that by the time the collection is out, he's probably way too big.
More Rose. Stop.
It would be. I think it's gonna be so hilarious to actually see him dressed up in a onesie like that. Just like a 2-year-old in the body of a 4-year-old wearing a little romper.
It's funny, isn't it, when they're really big? Because my little one is quite big as well. Because before I was like, I'm gonna have to do baby stuff in bigger sizes. Because suddenly realizing, yeah, like some babies are just ginormous.
All right, so sustainability is the center to your work. It's not just, you know, yarn choices, but it's also in the ethos. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about how you stay creatively sustainable when this burnout is creeping in. And you did mention that burnout creeps in very often because you have these like crazy amounts of work, long days, long hours, or you used to. And, you know, then you would burn out, take a break, then once again, rinse and repeat. So, you know, how do you stay creative when this burnout creeps in?
Yeah, I think from when I started and I had like a fashion brand, that was something, I suppose it's like thinking about sustainability in lots of different ways. And you can think about your yarns and your materials, the purpose of the thing you're making, the longevity, its lifestyle. And I think I realized for me is I sort of also wanted to look at being sustainable about like thinking about the piece being, you know, if you're making something that is joyful and it's meant to be kept and treasured, that kind of slows down its consumption and the pace of its consumerism, and you've sort of made it consciously and you care for it. And it's sort of that I found, because when I first started, I was using all like surplus waste materials, and that was the sort of bit I focused on. And then when I was switching into patterns, I was thinking about actually the sort of making process and making that as sustainable as possible. And actually, if you put the making process into the hands of the person that's going to have it, it really changes your dynamic with the thing that you're making. And it changes it, you know, you're making it in a better environment and so that kind of personal sustainability is quite important to me. Obviously, like we said, like I am kind of terrible at this sort of burnout cycle, and it's just always been a way that my brain has worked. But I kind of get looped into that cycle because I love it so much, and I get sort of obsessed. And most of the time, you know, it's not because I've been pushed, it's because I've led myself down there. And so I definitely am trying to practice a little bit more of what I preach in terms of, you know, keeping that sustainable side in terms of you and your creativity and the environment that you're making something. And so, yeah, I'm definitely trying to find a better balance in that. But I think for me, especially, like I've always thought from the very beginning, it was so important to me. And one of the reasons why I stopped having a fashion brand, because I didn't want to upscale enough that I would have to ship out the construction, because the making part for me was like the bit that I love. Like I love the making. I'm absolutely terrible at delegating. I love that making bit, and that really feeds me, like the actual creating.
Giving the tools to whoever crafters out there, giving them the tools, the patterns to create themselves, automatically makes them cherish a piece of garment.
You know how to fix
so much
something.
more.
I can't remember what the statistic is. I remember I used to know it, but there's like the longevity that something is kept if it is handmade is huge. Like it's so much more. But also you know how to fix it and you know how to care for it. And if I think about stuff that's handed down, and also then and that is one of the areas, especially in crochet, if you buy crochet on like the high street, that is exploited the most is like the people that make it. That's like one of the biggest areas that gets exploited because, you know, crochet takes a long time. There's no way that you're buying a top for £20 and that has been made by hand in like a sustainable environment. Yeah, like there's no way.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, it might take you 100 hours on your sofa, but you're watching Gilmore Girls and drinking tea and enjoying it. You know, it's very different. And that is the bit that I sort of loved. And I think for me, what keeps me, I don't know, even like grounded or in it is that making, like is the creating and thinking about the people making it. And especially if you're going to make something like colorful and joyful, like it can't be made it doesn't feel right to be made in a way that doesn't, you know, match what you're making.
Yeah. So do you feel like that is how, I mean, that's quite on brand with you, but do you feel the pressure to stay joyful, to stay always, you know, colorful? I mean, I know you love it. I know it's you, but do you feel like, oh no, I want to make something in one color only? Do you ever?
No.
Does that even cross your mind, or is it just
no? I think I always think about it like when I did my MA, I like my whole final collection is in grey, like in shades of grey, because basically I was told by my tutor at the time that I kind of had to do it like this in order to pass. And I took out a loan for my MA and I didn't want to be in debt. So I did it. And it's like something I look back at and I just bloody regret. Like the pieces are beautiful, but never in a million years would you look at that and be like, oh, that's like something Katie made. Like never, ever. And so I think, I don't know, I said this a little bit earlier about I found it kind of hard to show up on things like social media when I was not so happy, when I was going through the fertility stuff, because, you know, my brand is happy and smiley. But like as a person generally, like that is I'm pretty happy-go-lucky. And I love colour, and that is like, I always am head to toe in something colourful. So I basically just work for things, you know, that I would wear, I would love. And I think that's what I've sort of maybe not changed, but definitely when I had a fashion brand and then it started growing and you know, you have to make certain numbers because you've got employees and blah, blah, blah. You start designing more for the customer, you know, because you're kind of designing what you think they want because you need to cover much higher overheads. And it starts becoming, you know, different. Whereas I think I definitely, you know, if I wear black, like a whole black outfit round where I live, like people will avoid me because they know I don't know, like I'm in a mood. Like that's like my way to disguise myself. So like I kind of just make the stuff that I love. Even when I'm like down, so like when like before, like I would lift myself up by dressing colorfully and it would like help bring me joy, and surrounding myself in somewhere that's like sort of colorful. So I feel for me, I don't feel that kind of stifles me. I feel like that is just like true to who I am. What I sometimes can find quite creatively enriching is I occasionally work for different designers and I make things. I sort of work as a crochet consultant or I make things for them, and sometimes that is completely not my brand. Like I'm using my skill as a crochet designer and I'm matching like what they want. and that is completely sort of removed from me. And sometimes that is really fun because it's so out of my comfort zone that it like challenges me to make stuff that I would never make or use colors I would never do. So as a designer, even though I probably wouldn't want to, slap my name on it because it doesn't feel like me, quote unquote me, as just like a creative, as a designer, that can be really enriching and fun. But in terms of what I like to make, yeah, like it's always going to be colorful.
So like you mentioned, when you're wearing black, people know that you're in the mood.
Like if I live in like a relatively small seaside town, and being 6 foot tall and ginger and dressing like an overgrown toddler, you're quite recognizable. But yeah, so the days that you want to go to the shop and you're like, I really don't want to chit chat today, like I am tired, I've had 2 hours sleep, then yeah, I could just throw on a black pair of jeans and a black top. I think I've got one of each.
But then do you think people assume that you're always in a good mood?
Oh, I think people always think I'm happy, but also what like helps that or hinders is I've got really big front teeth. Like I've got quite prominent front teeth. And so, like when some people have resting bitch face where like when you're not doing anything, you look a bit grumpy. I have resting smiley face because my mouth like doesn't naturally close because I've got an overbite over my teeth. So when I'm just sitting, not doing anything, I look like I'm smiling. And so that definitely teamed with the colourful stuff. It's just like, even if I'm pissed off, like you'll think that I'm smiling.
That is so cute though. I need to see that. So what is something about, being a working artist and also a parent that maybe you wish people talked more about? Because that is also that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you today, because I know that a lot of our listeners, they are women, and they are women that are either on their way having kids, or they already have kids and they might be able to finally feel like they are, heard or seen, or so what is something about being just an artist, a designer, and a parent at the same time that you wish people just shared more about,
I don't know. I think probably a lot of the time it's something to do with that expectation that you're running back at normal speed after 9 months. Or, like how, like, at least for me, it's like, it's turned up a notch a bit. I think it's that kind of juggle. And I think it's also that thing, isn't it? It's like, if people are used to how you produced before, and even yourself, like I said, like I did really long days because I loved it. And it was fun. And I could do those 15, 16, 17-hour days before having a baby. And that's kind of, I've got used to working like that. And there's no way that I could do that now. Like absolutely no way. And so I suppose it's like if you're working in a sphere where that is how you've been used to working, or how you're used to getting stuff done, that is quite hard to then reevaluate that and what's expected of you. And I think especially if your creative job is like your main income, like how that works, like because obviously you have to change how you work a little bit, but also if that, like for me, this is what pays my mortgage, and me and my husband are both creatives, and we've got a dynamic that works really well for us, and we both kind of do it 50-50. And so I feel really lucky to have the support to still be able to do like the stuff that I love. But yes, it's like I love it, but it's also my job. And so I think it's like working, I think we were saying a little bit before, like what if you're working for other people, working in a way that they understand that you're not as steady as before. I don't mean that, but it's just like things happen that you can't anticipate.
You just have other priorities.
Yeah, other priorities. And
like it or not.
everything is new, especially when they're small. So I'm finding at the moment it's really hard for me to even like comprehend the things that will come up, if that makes sense. Like I can't guess yet. So I think it's working in a way where there is that buffer, and working in a way that also works for you, because everyone is really different and everyone's kid is very different and everyone's dynamics really different, and how your industry or like your job works, even in the sort of creative field, can be really different. And so it's trying to work out, I think, how to do that. And it's totally doable. I think it's just finding the right spaces and the right people and being kind on yourself. I think that's the thing that I found I was quite hard on myself, I think, in the beginning, because I definitely in the early bit had just overcommitted because I was just unaware of how I would be during pregnancy. You know, it's something new. Unaware of how I would be with a little one. So definitely overcommitted. So I kind of worked in a crazy way. But it's a way that kind of slotted in with how I was being, like how I could spend the most time with the bab and do the things I needed to do. And so I think it's also being quite like kind to yourself and realizing like sometimes you sort of work in a way and then you realize it doesn't work, and that's okay. You can change. And it doesn't also have to be like the traditional way that people work, because sometimes jobs don't work like that. So I don't know. I always think it's like giving yourself a little bit of like grace. And I think it's also like, I love my work and I love my kid. And they are like the best thing ever. And I love spending time with them. But I also feel like for my brain, I need that creative outlet, and luckily for me it works in a way that is how I can earn money, and it's okay to like try and juggle those things together, because I think as well at the beginning I felt probably a lot of guilt about working, but we were in a position where I had work and my partner didn't, so it made more sense for them to spend more time with the baby while I could work. So yeah, I think just being kind to yourself. I mean, maybe that's all I think about being a working artist and parent that I wish people talked about more. Just giving yourself like some grace and being kind to yourself. And it's a learning curve working out how to work.
So you run an artful empire. You make patterns and kits, and you have tons of collabs, and you do a lot of teaching. What's one business aspect or thing that just completely surprised you, or I don't know, nearly broke you in your whole life?
So I think for me, like the thing that broke me, I would say, is like trying to run a fashion brand, like the reality of making ready-made pieces and working in that fashion sphere. Like I find it quite funny because where I probably looked the most like quote unquote successful, it's when I hated it the most. It was like the bit that I found most I was just not happy, and it kind of looked successful, but then doesn't really make very much money, but then cost quite a lot of money. And that was just, And I suppose it's like the reality of making like a living out of it. And that was definitely when it was just really, I had kind of stopped doing teaching and it was just being a fashion brand. And what I think, is like the rest of it, that was basically the trough. And the rest of it is just a big trial and error journey. And I think for me, what I've realized, what is most important, especially because this also, it really depends on like your dynamic. But if you're doing like a creative business as your kind of main income stream that needs to provide for you and your family, is that me just fingers in lots of pies. Like every time I've tried to solely rely on one thing, like that's when it's put a lot of pressure in one thing that could or could not work, or how something develops. Whereas actually when I've sort of diversified more, that is when it surprised me. And for me, that's kind of surprised me, because I think I always thought, oh, you had to like really like focus in, like the success is in this one thing doing really well. And actually for me, it has been the opposite of that.
But that also ties up a little bit with for instance, when you're working out on several projects, you know, because if you have several projects, you know, several whips in the make, and you know, at some point you make a huge mistake on one of them, and you're just going back and forth, and oh, it's taking ages, and you're getting, you know, frustrated because maybe you can't fix it or you can't figure it out. Then it's really, really nice to have kind of like a backup
Definitely.
plan.
I always
Something
think
to
it's like if you're doing a really big blanket project, you want like a small instant gratification project in the mix. Yeah, 100%. I think it's when there is nothing more frustrating than when you're working on one big project and it keeps going wrong.
Yeah, it is the case now with us, with me and my best friend. We're working on this vest together. We have a little private cal going on, just me and her, and we're trying to modify it so that it fits our bodies. And obviously we have very different bodies, so it's a lot of you know, trying out with different German short rows in some places and this and that, and frogging again. And you know, the yarn is not as fluffy as we started with. It's super crazy actually, but yeah, it is so frustrating to I kind of agree with you on this, even though, like you mentioned, I was also a person who thought, okay, maybe if I just focus on one thing at a time, then I'm gonna do it really, really good. But actually, then you just kind of go insane.
Yeah, it's you put
Focusing
all
on
your
just one
eggs.
thing.
You put all your eggs in one basket, and so then if it starts to go wrong, it like crashes down.
Yeah.
And I think, and then it's really hard to pick up. I think like pick yourself up from that. I think it's like if you feel like everything has gone awry, like you've put everything into one thing, and then it's gone off and gone awry, and it's.
But I'm
hard
a little
to
bit with that project right now. I'm a little bit like that because now I've messed it up so much, and now I'm kind of like, sorry for just like randomly making this analogy, but I mean, you know,
No, it makes
it's insane. Now I don't even want to touch that project because I'm just so pissed off.
Sometimes you
I'm so
just need a
frustrated.
little bit of fresh eyes, lovely. I would like do like a little project, like put it down, something little fun, instant gratification, get that dopamine hit, and then like attack it again. I think that's it. Sometimes it's just like that actual, one of the biggest things is that ability to step back and having the space to be able to step back. And I think in this, like, the analogy works perfect, because I think in business, that's exactly, you want to be able to have the ability to make mistakes, because through making mistakes, you find out what you love, you grow, you get it right. But if that is like the only thing you're doing, or you've put all your eggs in that basket, you don't want to make the mistakes because you're scared of making them. And so I think it's being able to work in a way in your business life and in your projects where you have the ability to make mistakes without a load of pressure coming up, you know, because of it.
Speaking of pressure, how do you deal with being the face of your brand, and you know, are there days when you basically just want to hide under a pile of yarn, for that sake, and just not answer emails? Do you have a team that maybe helps you, or are you kind of like alone in this?
It's just me and my mum help me out, but everything, like, you know, everything's me. And I always laugh when it's called like a brand, because I'm like,
Katie Jones, the brand.
It's just me. Yeah, it's just me and my mum. But yeah, when I had like a team when I was like a fashion, like I did a fashion line, but when I left that, it basically became just me, and which is nice, because actually, especially now with needing more flexibility, that makes it great. because then you're not having to deal with a bigger team. And so especially when you're
if you're letting somebody down, it's just yourself.
Yeah, occasionally a client, but otherwise just me. Yeah, which is nice. I don't, you don't have to support that, but I suppose I find it funny because I suppose I find the being me bit easier. Like when it was a fashion brand, there was like a point where, because of how markup works and selling, like the pieces became very, very expensive, and they became very withdrawn from like me and my sphere, and became something else. And then it became more like my name, but like not me. Like I wasn't like as a sort of like more behind the scenes. And that was super weird. Like for me, that like just didn't really work. I kind of hated that. I didn't like not being connected to what I was making. And I think it's because I probably don't really see it as a brand. It's just me, and I just make the things that I like, and then I'm just really bloody thankful when other people like them. Yeah, it's just me and my good old mum making on the sofa, answering emails, doing all of that.
Do you then do things for yourself? Do you then, because if you put all of your creative juices into your brand, which is just you, do you have time to make things just for yourself, like just purely for yourself, not for Instagram, not
I think I'm bad at it, because even if I do something just for myself, because you gotta feed that hungry algorithm beast.
Nom nom nom.
I think I like do it with the intention that it's just for me. And then I'm like, oh, but this is fun. Like I can just share it in a story. And then I share it, and then someone might be like, oh, I like that. Can I have, like, is there a pattern? And then you're like, oh, I could make this a pattern. And so it's quite hard. And I don't really see that as always bad, because like I was saying, like, because what I make, and I think I definitely try and do it. I think when I first started, when I had fashion, I think I sort of did a little bit where you're like, oh, what do people want? Maybe I should try and make stuff to like, this is kind of what I don't do that really anymore. I just I make stuff that I like, and then I'm just like really, like I said, thankful when other people like it. I feel like most of the stuff I make is for myself, even then when it becomes like technically for work. But obviously, like I said before, it's like I love the making, and then I'm like, oh, I got to do a pattern, and I got to do the grading, and I got to do like the admin side. And so sometimes it's like when I've done something for myself, and maybe I haven't thought about that, and it's been it's like I have one pattern that haunts me, where I made a top when I did the fashion brand, and obviously when I made the stuff for the brand, I just had to make the production, so I could write a pattern in like my own way, and I didn't have to think about it in certain ways, and it was quite complicated. And then it's a top that I then made for like my maid of honor at my wedding, and it's a top that everyone always asks me, like, is there a pattern for this? Is there a pattern for this? And I get it. It's like a really beautiful top, and I kind of want to do a pattern for it, but it's so complicated. My brain can't even like comprehend how to like grade it. And so sometimes I feel like that, like I'll do something for me, but then it will be like, because I then am not thinking about time frames or anything, then sometimes they're like my best bits. And then I have to try and work backwards and work out how, because then I'm like, oh, actually this is like a shame to just be for me. But yeah, so I do things for me, and I think especially when it's like things in the house or like the allotment, the garden, like they become like my like purely creative freedom. But if I try and do it with crochet, it always ends up becoming back to work just by accident, I think.
What about AI?
Oh, this is where I'm going to just be a grumpy.
Because then I thought, okay, but if you're just making something for yourself, and people are just asking, we want the pattern, with forks and flames, torches, we want the pattern. Did you ever consider maybe using AI as a tool to help you speed up your
No. I'm just gonna, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I bloody hate it. I 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 get that it can be helpful in planning, I don't know, content strategy. I've used it for that before. So I get that it can be supportive. But I also feel as someone that the creative like part is my job, you know, it's not just like a hobby. This is how I make money in the creative world. This is how my partner, like, it's how we earn a living. And it is rampaging jobs. It's like taking jobs, which is just scary. And I think with AI at the moment, it's also just theft. Like everything that's being used to train it mainly has been like, you know, used without permissions. So like, especially I always find when it's like visual stuff and it's like taking bits of people's visual work and like smushing it together. Also, obviously, then there's the environmental impact of it. But yeah, so I get that people use it and it can be helpful, but I hate it. I also miss seeing like real things. Like I love Pinterest, you know, like I'm getting inspo on room decor and stuff like this. And then I see like everything I'm looking at is just an AI mock-up and it starts to look quite similar. It's just a bit boring. And I think the human sort of imagination and creativity is like magical. Like the fact that we can like think of these things and we're all different is, for me, it is like so amazing and magical. And I just think that it's sad that rather than like going to that as our first thing, like this amazing ability that we have ourselves, is that we get a computer to do it because maybe it's quicker and maybe it's easier. And yeah, don't get me started on AI patterns. Just no. No. And I think there is like a difference, whereas like if you're using it to help you and you're someone and you like would have never have like paid for somebody to do that, right? That's kind of different. But what I'm sort of seeing in like the creative industry is that it is just, it's like people are saving money and so it's taking jobs, and so that is a bit rubbish.
How do you think we as humans, as society, how do you think we are going to eventually protect that sacred part of creating? You know, how do you think we're gonna tackle that in the actually near future now? Because it just said the algorithm is very, very hungry, and the people need more and more and more. How would you tell us how we should?
I mean, I have no idea, and it's kind of, I think it's all stemmed from like our like consumerism and our need, that kind of speed hungry, like the speed, quickness. And I think, I don't know, it's like as crafters we should be able to embrace the slow, right? Because we make things by hand rather than buying them, which takes time. And so, but I'm even someone that, you know, tries to embrace the slow, and I, you know, if I need something and I need it tomorrow, I like want the speed. And I think we've just got used to this like instant speed, and like, I don't know how we consume, especially like visuals, like where now we just consume a lot through our phones. Like the quality of stuff doesn't matter as much anymore because we're just watching it really quickly on a small screen. So, you know, like everything kind of gets filtered down. And so I don't really know how it will change. I think people will always create.
You know how, Katie?
But the problem...
You know how? Buying an allotment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's like we will always make things and create things. The problem is it's like, I mean, this is where every rant comes down to like, it's capitalism and consumerism. But a lot of it is, I think. It's for businesses to make money, everything just gets quicker and easier and cheaper is kind of how it works. And so I have no idea. I have no idea how to fix this. I'm just saying, you know, something like AI, it can do amazing things, but it needs like regulation, I think, especially on like people's artworks and also it's that thing, it's like working out how to use things for tools to improve, not things that kind of eradicate stuff that
or replace
or like stuff that's important, because at the moment we also don't have an alternative like for the stuff that's being replaced, right? So like there's nowhere for that. So I don't know, I think it's it's kind of really interesting, and everything is changing really quickly. And I think for me stuff like that won't help, because for how I like to work, because I love the process, and that is the part that is missing with AI, right? Like you get from A to Z with no BC, like you just very quickly. And I love the process of making. Like even if I make a million mistakes and I unravel and I do it, I love the process. Same with an allotment. It takes me a long time to get one courgette, but I fight for that one courgette because I love the process of like going and doing and like, and so I think it's like working out how to enjoy that.
I think that the most beautiful thing that AI could actually, or everything from capitalism and consumerism and all of this fast world we live in, I think the most beautiful thing that came out of it is the realization that people are getting nowadays that they need to slow down, and that they need to go out and look at a tree, hug a tree. And
I think that is it. It's like realizing, and it feels very counteractive to like the pace of a lot of stuff. But sometimes things have to go so far in one way for like to realize that you're
what's valuable there.
Yeah. And so I think it's that. I think it's realizing like actually, it's like that thing, right, where like sometimes there's an AI image and you can just tell. And you don't know why you can tell, but there's just something about it, and you're like, you can still tell.
It's the hands.
And I think it's that. It's like, definitely the hands. The hands. And what was it? Belts? Just belts are weird.
I never noticed the belts.
Oh, apparently belts are just also quite weird in hands. But yeah, it's that thing that I think, there is. It's realizing that the person behind some of these things, or like how we make things, there's something different about it. But yeah, definitely I think the pace. But yes, I don't know, it's a whole world that I'm still sort of grumpy about, but it's here, it's not going away, and I think it's just how it can be used in a way that one, like, does not destroy the environment, and two, is just has, I don't know, like a benefit without too many consequences,
negative impacts.
Impacts.
All right, but what about giving us a little bit of advice, especially the people who are listening and maybe they're thinking about starting their own design journey, for instance. So do you have, or how does Katie Jones start the Katie Jones brand in 2025? If you had to start fresh from zero right now, what would you do differently? And I kind of I think I know the answer you're going to give me, but what would you do and what would you not do?
So, I mean, starting now would be very, very different, because I've got like a family and a mortgage that I have to pay. And when I started, I didn't have that. I had like a freedom that I could just mess up, live off eating baked beans for 2 months because I messed something up. And obviously there's no free, like if I was starting now, there isn't the freedom in some ways to be like that. But I would say things like a bit like I was saying about putting your eggs in one basket, like don't invest money that you don't have. I think is a big thing. I think it's like start small and grow and diversify your business as much. Like just because it's not your full-time job doesn't mean you're not successful. And I think thinking about how we rate success is also really important, because I think what we think is, I don't know, quote unquote successful can be really different. And I think diversifying, like if you are running a business, I think also it's realizing like, why do you want a business? Do you want a business because it needs to make money, or do you just love doing something as your hobby? And when you turn your hobby into your job, it makes it very different. And I think trying to run a craft business, like, you know, to support yourself is hard. Like it's hard in this sort of current market. And so I would say like, yeah, diversify yourself. Like how, like you can have like a quote unquote brand, but within that, what are different things that you can do? And actually like I think there's that thing where if you think that doing just your creative business is like what makes it successful, what I found for me is actually having another job alongside. So I teach like I do workshops, but I also teach at university and colleges, like as a teacher part-time. And that being able to have that alongside has meant that I actually have so much more freedom in my brand, because I am not always financially stressed, which I think is really important. So sometimes I think you can think like, oh, it's my main thing. But if it's your main thing and that's where you'll get all your money from, if suddenly, I don't know, especially like craft businesses, I think you're saying right in the beginning, like the busy period, like the difference between like spring through to winter, when people want to pick up projects, is really different. So it's like even understanding that, like cash flow and all of that boring stuff, but actually then diversifying and doing things like workshops as well as patterns. As you might sell ready-made pieces. I always found that personally very hard to get the money back for your time, like the reality of how long things take. But I think that if you're sort of wanting to start, it's go small, go steady, stick to like what you want to do, because people, like trends change. And if you're looking to do something for more than 2 years, you don't just want to feed into trends. You want to, you know, there's also lots of people doing stuff and there's room for everyone. But it's then, if you're true to what you like and what you do, then you've got a sort of a look that you're doing and it doesn't feel forced and it feels easy. So I think that's it. It's like sort of being true to yourself, diversify, and don't think because you might have like a side hustle to your creative business that it makes your business any less valid, because actually sometimes having that support, because the thing is I wish that I didn't have to worry about actual, you know, financial stuff. But the reality is when it's your job and your life, that is a massive part to your business, how you run your business, how you work. And so anything that relieves pressure on that and allows you to be creative, because it's very, very hard to be creative when you're like panicking and being like, but I need this many people to buy this. Like it just doesn't really work. So you want to set yourself up in a way that you can support yourself, and that will help support your creativity.
Well, you've been one of my absolute favorite designers for color inspiration. I When I need color inspiration, I just go to Katie's Instagram. So what is a color combo that you secretly absolutely love, but you actually never used it in a design? Or you not use it at home, or maybe you want to do something crazy at home, on a wall. But you're kind of like, ugh.
I don't know. I haven't really held back very much with colours, like chaotic colours. It's something I don't tend to hold back with. I'd say, probably if I was going to do something all tonal, but then actually I probably wouldn't pick that. So I don't really know. I think I always think about colour in a way. I had a tutor that once told me, you pick 3 colours that you like and 1 that you think is minging, like you don't like, and you put them together, and that is how you make like a more interesting colour palette. And I actually use that advice quite a lot. So it's thinking about like, you might pick a few nice matching pastels and then like a really weird murky, I don't know, olivey green, and how that interacts with them. Or you throw a neon in with some more muted tones, and I think they always said it was like a way that you can make something like look more sophisticated than like just being like bright or like rainbow. And so I use that quite a lot. Sometimes I just go classic rainbow, but yeah, I don't really have anything. I think for me, like what would feel more out of the blue now, is if I went and did something grey. Or actually, oddly, I had a phase, and I'm still in it. I would have never used like baby poo brown before. Never used it. And weirdly, since having a baby, I really love like bright colours or pastels with brown. And I never, like, that's been like a change. I'm like, has it been the pregnancy? I don't know. But I'm really loving like brown as my base colour. Like I used to use black a lot or blue, but I'm loving brown. Brown.
So is that something you start from actually? How do you build a I don't know, a color combo generally?
I look at what works. I don't know. I look at what works and I think about balance. So in terms of how I pick, quite a lot of the time I look to artists' work. So it might be like I love Nikki Sampfal, and so it might be that I look at a sculpture or a painting of hers, and I'm like, I love the colors, but then I also think about the balance. So I'm like, this is quite heavily blue, but it's got pops of this, this, and this. And I think about how I can take that into a like design, because I know I'm already gravitated to it, like in terms of like its colors, like way, and its balance, like its weight of what colors over what. And I find that, so I generally, like I do a lot of mood boarding when I'm making stuff, but it won't be like of other crochet things or other knit things. It's generally like photos, film stills. It might be like I go a lot to also like printed fabric or print artist work, and that is where I draw, I think, a lot of my inspiration from, in terms of when I pick out like little pattern motifs or color. That's kind of what I will look sometimes to crochet stuff, usually vintage, but not very often. I get drawn in quite a lot.
That is also what I preach a lot when creating color combinations, because there's so much inspiration outside of the crafting world. You know what I mean? You don't need to look at a color combination, like I said, on Instagram, under #crochet. You can also just use so many different other
if you look, I always tell people to like look at stuff that they pick that they love. Like it might be like they have a rug in their house that they love, or do you have like a print dress that you just like, there's something about it that you love, or even like in your garden, like if you look at
I was
like,
gonna say that just nature, just go out in nature.
and I think that, because I think sometimes people get quite worried about what colors go together, or is it this on a color wheel and does it match with this, or how's it go? And I just think if you pick things that visually you already think like you gravitate towards, you like, that will, you can just use that to inform you.
Another thing that I've been very, very keen on also preaching is actually it's a design principle from just interior design. Actually, it's the 60-30-10 rule, where basically for 60% of your whatever you want to create, 60% of it is basically like kind of your dominant color, and then you have, you know, a secondary color, which is 30%. It can be whatever combination you're making, right? And then 10% for accent. You know what I mean? And that
I've never heard of that theory, but no, that really works.
That has worked for me magically. And actually, when you look at some really, really good designs out there, including yours, you've done that accidentally, Katie.
Oh, thank you.
You've done that accidentally. You've applied the 60-30-10 rule accidentally. And it works so nice. And it creates the perfect color scheme every single time, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think it's like those little rules that I think help people. Because I think sometimes when I think about color, obviously I studied fashion knitwear, I would say probably for too long, technically 7 years, but I basically went to design school, and that is the bulk of what we were doing at the school I went to. Like, it was less technical, more arty-farty, but a lot of it was about sort of finding your aesthetic, your vibe, like, and researching. So things I always think, for me, I sort of look at those things instinctively because that's how I've been trained. But I think then it's really lovely to then talk about these things, because obviously if you're creating and you haven't gone to fashion school or design school, and this isn't sort of something that has been taught to how you sort of can look at color, I think it's so exciting to then like know little tricks so then you can explore, because obviously you can get a pattern and follow it exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that, and like the colors that someone picked. But also what is lovely about making stuff yourself, and it's one of the things that I like relish, is that you can actually change it to what you like and what you gravitate towards and what fits you. And so I think giving people the confidence to explore color in different ways and feel excited and confident, because the thing is sometimes now you get yarns in so many colors that sometimes I think people can feel like it's too much choice. Well, not too much choice, but it can be overwhelming, you know, if you're making something up and you're picking like 6 different colors and you're not quite sure how they work together. And so I always think that, yeah, like picking like mood boarding, or like finding these colors in different places and working out if they work as a whole in different ways, this really helps you then transfer it into something you're making, and it becomes less like trial and error of like picking 4 colors randomly and then just seeing if they work together in a jumper and then being like, oh, halfway down the sleeve this looks horrible, what have I done? Also, I'm always like, just crayons, just color in with crayons, everybody. Just like, even if it's not going to look the same when you make it, it just helps you like play around with color before you dive in.
So if you could talk to 7-year-old Katie, you know, who just found a crochet hook in a drawer somewhere, what would you actually tell her? And speaking of drawers, what would you find in a Katie Jones childhood drawer? Glitter, crayons.
Crayons, I love crayons now. I feel like I always feel like a kid when I go buy myself a new pack of crayons. Like, I prefer them to colouring pencils. I don't know why. Just love a wax crayon. I think in a drawer, I used to love, I didn't know if they have them there, these like kits where you could make like a cuddly toy, like the bits of fur were already cut out and you just sort of sewed them together. I also loved those like scratch paintings where they're like foil underneath and you would like scratch the design in. They were my craft favorites, I think, as a kid. It's like it's funny actually, both of them is like crafting but with a template, like not complete freedom, right? Like I'm being told what to do. Interesting. I've never thought about it like that. Maybe that's
but maybe that's what, you know, that's the beginning, you know, that's
of
the
liking a
start.
passion.
You were and then you went into this mindset of like, wait a second, I can
do
myself.
what I want. And no, so 7-year-old me, I don't know. I don't have much advice for her. She did all right. But I think I would say, like, for as much as I like the arty-farty bit, like 7-year-old me, this is what you're going to go down into as your job. Learn about finances. Like, learn about finances. Learn about being self-employed and tax returns. I mean, a 7-year-old probably doesn't want to learn that, but I think in terms of, I was very lucky and how my parents were very, very supportive and always have been, and always sort of told me like, you can do anything you want. You just want to try, you know, you're going to be working a lot of your life. You want to pick a job that you're going to enjoy. So, you know, you can do anything that you love. It might be hard. You might have to work hard, but, you know, pick something that you love. And that is, I feel very like I didn't feel any pressure to ever go down any kind of route in terms of education or job or that. I felt I had quite a lot of freedom. And freedom and creativity is great. But when you need to make money from it as your job, you also need to understand business and finances. And actually, when it is your job, I think that's the way harder bit of running a crochet business. It's not the crochet, it's the money. So I think anyone thinking about pursuing anything like creativity-wise for your job is that you have to realize it is a job, and if it is going to support you and sustain you, you just need to understand about tax and about costing and about markup.
Yep.
All the boring bits.
All the boring bits. Now, speaking about boring bits that are not that boring, crochet and babies and influence. I am very much aware that, of course, you know, kids should do what they make, you know, what gets them happy, and you shouldn't force things on your children. But as parents, we do have the pleasure of inclining them towards specific interests, right? So a great example is how Albert's favorite song is Trains by Porcupine Tree, because Sebastian kept playing it over and over and over and over and over. Or how he really loves planes. And obviously his dad works in the aircraft industry, so we go often to the airport that's close to our home, and he checks out planes super up close, right? He's very privileged little boy there. But I do wish he showed some interest in yarn. And I mean, I have these little mini skeins of yarn that I let him play with. But I don't know. I really, really wish he would show some interest in it. You know what I mean? So what is your advice there? What is your advice for me to, you know, to push this on him a little bit? What is
I don't think I've got any advice. I don't think I've got any advice on that.
What about the relationship your baby has with yarn now? You
so
know?
I think that they, like, I find it quite funny, like from next to the changing table, from when they were tiny, there's like a really big embroidery, like tapestry embroidery of flowers. And they were obsessed with it, like obsessed. Like from when they were literally like a month, they would just stare and point at it. And even when we switched things out, it was just always this one. So I was like, they're going to love crafts and flowers. Perfect. And I was very happy about that. But no, and at the moment, I joke that they love crochet because basically, like they're at the point where they're not like trying to climb on things. They're pulling themselves up and trying to jump. And all the crochet works as like some kind of helpful like army, you know, when it's like those army nets Basically, all crochet granny blankets work as like a special army net that allows them to pull themselves up. So I'm like, they love crochet. Look, they love it. They play with it so much. I mean, I don't know if it's just because it's helpful. But I think also maybe they'll go to, not to hate it, but like, because when I was working, when they were quite small and crocheting, like I would have them like on my lap and sort of be crocheting, like not quite over them, but like next to them. Or at the moment I crochet and have them like in the sling. And so I can sort of walk around and crochet and do some work sometimes when I'm with them and they're in the sling. So they're surrounded by it a lot. So I'm hoping it sort of like feeds in. They seem, although at the moment I'm at the bit where I like wish they were less interested. So like if I've got a crochet hook out, that they don't want to grab it because I'm like, no, don't eat it. It's not. But yeah. So I think, but I always joke that actually, I mean, that's the thing. I feel like you can't really. Maybe you can influence. Maybe, who knows? But I'm of the impression that probably if I tried to influence, they would go the other way. And I always joke. Because our house is so colourful and I dress them so colourful, and that like both me and my husband are in creative careers, that they will just rebel and they'll just want to wear a grey suit and maybe work in finance and live in like a white minimalist house.
That is going to be absolutely hilarious. And you know what? I knock on wood right now, because that is my cousin. So her parents were super creative people, and, you know, super colorful house, and just super maximalism house and everything over the top. And now she is into, you know, Japandi, which is like a combination of Japanese and Scandinavian aesthetics. Like,
also,
so
like very minimal.
Beige minimalism. You know, they have, I think, at home like 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 knives, like, you know, like super basic.
This is where I will find it very hard. Like this type of rebel from I will be like, I just won't know what to do. I'll be like, okay, you've rejected my whole way of life. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's all about finding a proper balance. But you know what? It can also go the opposite, you know, because like I said, look at Albert now, obsessed with planes.
Yes, exactly.
Obsessed with
like
a specific songs. Yeah. So, what's the most meaningful message that somebody sent you throughout your whole, you know, period, the last year or a year and a half or so? Something that kind of struck a chord in your heart?
I don't know. I feel like what I love about working like this, and I think it's what I really was one of the main reasons I changed from working as a fashion brand to coming back to the craft sphere, is that I loved the community and the connection, and that is what was really missing. When it became like a fashion brand, I realized like actually that is like the bit that I live for. Like I love showing someone how to do it, like the teaching, and then it clicks and they get it. And then when people tell you sort of what it has done for their life, and I think it's that, isn't it? Like quite a lot of the time craft is like a vehicle or something. It's not even like just the making, it can be like a support through something. It like when you make something very special for someone, like as a gift, I think it's one of those things that is much more, what do they say, what's the phrase, much more than the sum of its parts or whatever. And I think that anytime anyone sort of reaches out and like sort of tells me that, you know, they were making something through like a hard time and it helped them or that kind of stuff, that is what I love. That crafts and making can be such a support. And and like an outlet for people, because I think that's the bit that is joyous and it brings people together as well. And I think that's the bit I relish. Like that is the bit that I think is so meaningful. And it's because it, you know, when you're making, it's more than, for someone who primarily makes clothes with my designs, you know, it's more than making clothes. It's not just like buying something just to wear. It's more than the fact that it's a garment. It's like the whole making process and why you're making it, and how the act of making it might have like taken you out of like a headspace that you needed, like some time apart from oil. You've slowed down and you've taken stuff in, and it's the community, it's the love, it's like the slowness, and it's anything that allows people just to take a little bit of a slow down and time for themselves. I think, like we were saying, in this world that feels very rushed and busy a lot, I think is like beautiful.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that's it.
I couldn't agree more. You know, we have I remember one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast in the first place many months ago, like even a year or two ago actually. It was because I had a lot of messages in my inbox from, you know, different people watching our live streams and so forth, and they were all just telling us how big of an impact crafting has in their day-to-day life, and how it's helped them, you know, combat so many different difficulties, physical and emotional and mental. So one of the reasons I started Skein and Tell was because I really wanted to tell those stories and kind of bring more awareness about the power that, you know, crafting.
Yeah, it's
has.
much more than the thing you make. I think that's the thing. It's
Exactly.
it's all, I think that is it. It's like the process. And I think that's the thing that is, and that's
For
the
sure.
creative part, isn't it? Like that's the bit that we sort of fall in, and it's, you know.
It's true what they say, you know, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Cheesy but true, and I love it.
Easy but true.
It's 100% true, I think, and that is what, like that, because that's the thing that makes the connection, like with other people, with yourself, with what you're making. It's like the fact that it's taken time and it's had, like, you know, labor and love poured into it.
Yeah. Well, Katie, thank you. Really, truly thank you for these, 2 hours now? Almost 2 hours.
Thank you very much for listening to my rambles.
No, but seriously, thank you for sharing, you know, your magic with us today, and your beautiful heart and your honesty, because you've been honest and straight to the point, even though you did ramble a lot, Katie. Sorry to say.
You know, I get that. But we just said it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. That's my rambles.
But you know, you reminded all of us listening that even when, you know, even when we're surrounded by mess, and I am surrounded by mess, I wish I could show everybody what's on or just around me right now. It's like when we started talking, right before I started recording, I was eating a piece of bread, just a plain piece of
plain bread.
A dry piece of plain bread that I found on the table, and I was drinking water from a jug.
So
not even
I sat recording on the bed because that's the only clean space for me to sit on a bed.
You've reminded me and all of us that even when everything's tangled, everything's sticky and loud and covered in mashed banana, there is so much beauty in every single stitch that we make. So thank you for that.
Can't have beauty without the chaos. That's what feels
true.
Good. Yeah, can't have beauty without chaos.
All right, tell us a little bit if nobody knows who Katie Jones is, right? First of all, how dare you? Second of all, where can they follow your work? What upcoming cool projects do you have that you want to share about with us? And yeah, basically, where can they find you?
Can you find me?
Just
So you can find me at, and like this is just to probably annoy all crocheters and even myself at this point, Katie Jones Knit, because I started my like what do you call it, your name, when I was just counted as a knitwear business. So although it's mainly crochet, I knit a little bit. You can find me at Katie Jones Knit, and that's on like Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest and all of that.
And in the description also of the podcast, I'll link it there too.
And my website. And then projects. I've got a very fun one we spoke a little bit about with Hobbii. If you've got a little one or you know a little one that might want something spooky, we've got the Baby Boo collection. And then I have another thing out later in the year that you can buy in a shop and get from libraries. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is yet, but that probably hints enough. It comes with a cover and pages in it.
I would like a signed copy, please.
I've got one of those coming out, but yes, I just, and I'm just around. I'm just around on the inner web sphere.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead, guys. Check out the incredible work that Katie has curated over the years, because I absolutely love you, Katie. I love your work. I love chatting with you.
Love you, right?
You're a
back.
sweetheart.
No,
but
it has been an absolute pleasure chit-chatting with you, my darling. Absolute pleasure.
And who knows? Hopefully soon. Hopefully we'll get to chat soon. Maybe more about crochet and more specific niche things that doesn't have to do with
I will happily chat. You know me. I love a chatty ramble. I'll talk anyone's ear off about anything. So you don't have to ask me twice.
Awesome, guys. So all right, so whether you're crocheting on the floor next to your playpen or hiding in your craft nook for some solo time, I see you. Your creativity still counts, and there's no wrong way to be a fiber artist, especially when you're just doing your best with what you've got. So if today's episode stitched something special in your heart, please share it with your fiber fam, your fiber besties here, by using the hashtag Hobbii podcast or hashtag Skein and Tell. Leave a comment on this episode, and until next time, whisper a thank you to the universe while you're weaving in your ends. It all helps.
Thank you.
All right, keep your skeins untangled and away from your bob, and your projects as close as you can. All right, love you, bestie. Bye.